This podcast contains potentially adult language, adult themes, definitely drinking, and possibly sexual context. Listener discretion is advised. And we're recording. Welcome to Drinking with Authors, the podcast and YouTube channel. Woot woot! We're so fancy. Okay, I'm your host, Erica Lance. With me today is
J.M. Paquette.
And our guest today is the amazing and in a completely different time zone, Tia Simmons. Woo! Okay, let's first talk about what we're drinking because that's important. So I have Drinking with Authors swag, which I'll send you if you want it. And I actually found a ginger beer at the back of my fridge. I didn't look at the expiration date. I didn't need to. And I mixed it with honey jack. So we'll just see how this goes. And if I make it all the way through the podcast, it's cool. JM, what are you drinking there?
I'm actually drinking fancy hot tea. It's called Kompot, and it's like this red, fruity Russian tea in my Annette Marie mug.
Okay. That's because Jen can't drink alcohol. Anyway, TS, what are you drinking?
Well, it's only 10 o'clock in the morning here in Australia on a Sunday morning. So coffee, unfortunately.
This is not the true spirit of Australia, I feel. I'm just saying, I'm going to throw it out
really
there.
Not.
No, it's not. I really feel like you should have been. It's 10 a.m. in Australia here. So obviously beer.
It's very much part of our culture.
Yes. I actually work with one of my teams is in Australia. They're in Melbourne. And all the time I'm having to remind people for that region. I keep going, yeah, that's cool. So you scheduled that meeting. It's 3 a.m. there. They're not coming to your meeting. I appreciate you trying though. Okay. So TS, for those that don't know about you, obviously they're dumb, but tell the world what you write.
So I write dystopian fiction, but with a focus on sustainability and on community. So it all started really, I guess, for me in realizing that the world's got its priorities massively screwed up. And we focus more on new iPhones and my kids wanting iWatches and all of these things. And I just thought, we've got our priorities massively screwed up. And it was that classic case of write the book that you want to read. So I wanted something that wasn't formulaic and wasn't predictable, and something that made people really think about the world we live in.
I love that. I love that completely. So, but let's travel back in time, shall we? Because we just traveled forward for you, but we can travel back. And let's discuss when you started writing. Not the first book, but when did you start writing? Let's go back to then.
A long time ago.
Yes.
So I have a Bachelor and a Masters degree in English Lit, but I really got really burnt out after doing 2 degrees and a thesis and realizing that I just needed to take a break. So, started working, started traveling, had a family, did all those things. But it was always sort of percolating, I guess, in me. And I've started at various points and it just wasn't the right time. And this series started in 2018, so pre-COVID, funnily enough, even though there is a bit of a dystopian, the world is ending in these books, it was pre-COVID. And so that's where it started for me with this series.
Well, that's awesome. So Jen is a PhD in English Lit, so I already know and can tell by the look on her face she has questions. So I'm going to
feel you so much.
What did you write your thesis on?
Oh, goodness. It was comparative literature, English Indonesian, because I speak Indonesian as well. So mine was, it was a bit of an assessment of different cultures and literature in different cultures.
Can we find it anywhere?
It was a few years ago now, so I'm not even sure that they're online. It was back in the days where you had to submit your bound copies with the embossing on it to the university library, 3 copies. So I have no idea if they've actually digitized them or not. I've never gone looking.
So fans out there, if you want to be super creepy, what she's basically saying is go find her thesis. I'm waiting because for JM, she's got, she writes obviously as well, but I don't know why I said obviously. Yes. So there's a lot of honey jack in that cup. It's fine. This is going to be a great
I don't even know what honey jack is.
Oh, so Jack did. You gotta love us over here. So Jack Daniels is a
Yeah.
American whiskey, right? So what they've done though is they've put flavors. So one of the flavors is called honey Jack, and they put honey so it tastes sweet like honey. The problem with this particular beverage is it tastes sweet like honey. So you could just put it on the rocks and just drink this whiskey straight, and it's good times for all, at least for a couple hours until you fall on your face. So honey Jack happens to be one of my favorites. And ironically, some people that work for me decided that they wanted to give me a treat. So yesterday, a big bag of liquor arrived from a liquor delivery, and there was a big bottle of honey Jack. So I was like, what do I want to have for this podcast? And so I was like, I have the honey Jack, but I really ought to mix it with something because I broke my leg a little over a month ago, and so I haven't, you don't want to drink with a broken leg because that will potentially end you up with another broken leg. So I've taken it very easy, and I was like, I wonder what I have to mix with this. Oh, it's going to be fun times for all, I can already tell. Anyway, but that's what honey Jack is. So if you come to the United States, you can take a plethora
I'll
of
look into it.
They have flavors. There's an apple one, there's a cinnamon one, there's a
See,
peach one.
You don't get any of that. It's just not fair. It's not the same market here.
No, you guys have other things though, like all the most deadly poisonous creatures on the planet seem to live there.
And they're
So
all
you
trying to
have
kill
that.
you.
Yes, I feel like you it's funny, and I kind of wonder if you guys there ever get to see the TV shows that we have here. We're getting totally off topic here, but because they do these like world's deadliest creature shows right over here, and
Yep.
it pretty much the way they've shown it, if you even just step off the plane in Australia, you are probably going to get punched by a kangaroo, which will rip your arms off. There are spiders that are just going to bury themselves in your shoes and everywhere else. Koalas are little demons in fuzzy wrapping that just attack you out of the trees. Like it don't go in the water because there's 4,000 kinds of jellyfish and great white sharks. Literally just surrounding Australia. They just circle.
But you realize it's just an idiot test. So we're just trying to work out who can see past it and still come and then go, actually, I didn't see any of them. But, it's just trying to do that little bit of a test.
I love it. Cleansing the gene pool. I think it's a great idea because it's so funny though, because every time they do the 20 most deadly creatures, like there are 3 that are not in Australia. And they're near the bottom of the list.
You never see them. Kangaroos, absolutely. But, my kids, when we first moved here, so I live in a regional area now, they had the old kangaroo that lived in the schoolyard, and he'd hoover up all the sandwiches that the kids would leave behind. And so occasionally you'd see the principal going along with the umbrella, trying to get him out of the playground before the kids went out to play, which was really lovely.
That's a story in it.
They named him Kevin the kangaroo.
Oh, Kevin the kangaroo. How adorable is that?
Love it.
Okay. So you finally sit down and you start writing these books. What were some of your favorite books though? Like I have a question later in the podcast about the favorite books. We're not answering that now, but what was your inspiration? What made you decide to even go down the literary path with your degree and stuff? Because I got to watch, me and Jen have known each other for 20 years. And so I've gotten to see her go through that entire getting her dissertation and everything. What made you decide to go that path?
So originally I started off as a teacher. And then of course, when you start breaking down other people's texts and, let's talk about the theory of irony in Jane Eyre, you get really, really over literature really quickly. And it wasn't till I moved to different careers and I spent a lot of my time in public broadcasting in Australia, working in international development, working overseas, working with other countries, which is what overseas is, Tanya. You can tell it's Sunday morning.
You're fine. I just messed up honey Jack. Whatever you say, this is going to be golden. You can't go down from here. It's good.
So it took me a long time to get back to reading for pleasure. And then I did start reading for pleasure again, and, found that I find a lot of books really formulaic. And then I found Outlander, which changed my life because it wasn't formulaic. And that's what I really liked about it. And it was this tapestry that these little characters in book 1 that would come back in book 4, and you'd be going, I didn't see this coming. And I really loved that. And I thought, I really want to do that. I really want to build a world where I have these people. And Antipodes was supposed to be a standalone. And of course, is always the way you finish it and you send it off to the editor and you're thinking, I'm all good. And it was winter and I was driving, and I live in a regional area with snow, and I was driving on a mountain road with snow and rain, and I'm thinking, I'm not done. And I couldn't pull over and I couldn't take notes. And all these storylines are coming through my head about it needs to go here and it needs to go here. And so I finally had to find a spot where I could pull over with no wild animals and take some notes about where I wanted this to go. And I'm now on my 5th and final, hopefully, in this series. But the ideas keep coming. So while they keep coming, I keep writing them down.
I think that's fantastic. I mean, that's what writers want in general. I agree on the formulaic. I think there are some that are definitely, some of those are my guilty pleasures, or some of the formulaic, like paranormal erotic romance. Because you can kind of just pick that up and have a happy moment. I realized what I was saying as I was saying it's fine. And it's not very deep. Like, for me, when you read Game of Thrones, I almost feel like you have to study that book. That's not I'm going to sit and enjoy this book for the sheer, because it's not. There's so many layers upon layers upon layers upon layers that you can't, flit through it. But I think it's great when you find that book that is truly brings that happiness, and especially sparks joy for you to start writing again.
Mm.
Did you want to be a writer when you went to school for English lit? You were
I
like,
absolutely did. No,
teaching.
I did. I did. Teaching was a meal ticket, quite frankly. And I'm, as you can probably tell by my not quite Australian accent, I'm British Australian. So I have both nationalities and both passports. And I've lived in both countries and taught in both countries. But teaching was one of those things that you go through high school and you have the careers advisor and you say, I want to be an author. And they say, look, sweetie, that's lovely, but what's going to pay the bills? And so they suggested that I did an education component to my degree, which I did dutifully, so that I could then teach other people's literature instead of writing my own. So it was great because I got to travel. I've taught in Thailand and Indonesia and in the UK and Andorra. I've taught and worked in a lot of countries. But it got me further away from my path, which was what I always wanted to do. And I had glandular fever in 2018, and I was having a really shit time at work. And I was home on sick leave, and I spent the first week in bed watching Netflix. And after a week of watching Netflix, I thought, right, this is shit. I'm not going to do this anymore. I'm going to start writing. And I didn't stop.
That is awesome. That is truly awesome. Because Jen, I think, has a similar path.
What, of being sick and tired?
The teacher thing.
Oh yeah,
what the heck?
I still teach, and I know exactly what you mean. Like, it's how to suck the joy out of the literature that you love. Teach it semester after semester, and you get over it. I keep changing what I have my students read just to avoid that. But now I do Lord of the Rings. I have a Lord of the Rings class, so I never get tired of that because I love the fantasy. Well, you mentioned a lot of traveling. Like, how has traveling all over affected your writing? Like, does it come through?
Absolutely, because I think what I wanted to get to was that we could build this society where everybody was equal, and it didn't matter if you were gay, straight, black, white. It really just doesn't matter. And Australia's a reasonably good melting pot, but I think the more you travel, the more you realize other people have got this right. And it is about this gratitude and empathy for other cultures and recognizing that everybody's got this amazing story to tell, and you've just got to be there to listen to it. So I wanted that. And I love traveling, and I love seeing different cultures and just thinking, wow, how amazing is that? And I'm not talking about IKEA, because, once you get sucked into those Swedish Isles, you don't get out again.
No, that's a whole travel experience in and of itself. I do think people should have that travel experience. If you've never been to an IKEA store, you should go.
You should get a shirt when you leave that's like, I went on the IKEA ride. Yeah.
I survived.
And you kind of get sucked through the vortex of IKEA because there's,
Mhm.
and then occasionally they say, you know, shortcut. And you think, do I dare take that shortcut?
I might
No.
miss the curtains.
If you take the shortcut, you're going to end up at the Swedish meatballs anyway. It doesn't matter. It's not really a
I do have
shortcut.
those too. We get the Swedish meatballs in Australia. See,
Well,
now I feel privileged now that we've got those.
yes, no, we
Yeah.
definitely, my son enjoys going just for the, if there's something I need, I'll be like, I got to go stop by IKEA, and he'll be like, no, I'll go. What do you want? Just send me a picture of what you want. I'll go get it. And I'm like, you literally just want to go eat Swedish meatballs. He's like, no, it's fine. I'll go get whatever it is you wanted. Just, so I like to mess with him and find some obscure little item, because finding the little items in IKEA, it's so terrible. So I'll be like, go pick up this dresser and find this spoon.
You have been
Like your
quested.
parenting.
Find the spoon. There's only one spoon. So when you finally sat down to start writing, is everything self-published that you do, or do you have a publisher? Or
Kind of. So I've got a hybrid publisher in Australia. So there's really very few publishers in Australia now. Unfortunately, it's a really small market here. So I ended up finding a publisher in Queensland here. So she does the cover art and the typesetting and those sorts of things for me, and then takes a commission from my works.
that makes
But
sense.
a lot of the marketing is mine.
Awesome. That's very cool. How have you bridged outside of Australia though? So are you like a big deal worldwide, do you think, or is it
I still
different?
have shocking imposter syndrome. I keep waiting for somebody to turn around and go, you know what? It's really crap and you've got no idea what you're doing. And every time I get a review that goes, wow, this changed my life, I keep thinking, really? Are you reading my book? So I still have that going on.
This is
I think what I
awesome.
never realized was that marketing is so bloody hard. I thought writing was the hard part, and going to editors and going, no, that's not what I meant, and all of those things was really the hard part. The writing's the easy bit. The marketing is really, really hard, and Australia's not a big market, and getting into the US market is really difficult because the market's saturated with books, and what makes yours stand out? So it's trying to work out social media, and it's trying to work out NetGalley, and it's trying to work out all these things without a mentor, and trying to work out how do you actually get your work out there in front of your audience. And I think that was the other thing I really struggled with. Was I don't like everything I read. The difference is I don't leave scathing reviews for things I don't like. And I struggled. I realized that I've got to find my audience. So if you happen to read erotica, that's great, which I do, but it's not what I write. So there's a bit of a skewing about finding your audience and finding your market.
I think that's very true. That's one of the reasons, honestly, everything you just said. We started a publication company. We've talked about it on the podcast, Four Horsemen Publications, because of just that. Is there so many authors that don't actually figure it out, or don't have the time or the money necessarily to market, because you do have to find it. And especially if you do what you're doing, where you're not writing a billionaire erotica novel. They're brilliant. Don't get me wrong. Do not send me hate mail, please.
They are what they are.
Yeah. But those are what they're, and there's a market for it. And you can look and see what other people are doing who wrote billion-dollar, erotica novels, but billionaire erotica novels. I'm fine. It's fine. And but you can see what they did. Where do they advertise? What do they do stuff? You can follow that. When you're taking on something that is a new genre, it is difficult sometimes to exactly find the niche, because you have to keep messing with it and messing with the keywords and messing with the blurb, and who do you send it to and who do you want to do it to. And we do have experienced a lot of that. And I think that's part of the reason some of the newer publishers are coming out like us. Because you got to find a way for the authors to be able to write, because gone are the days where authors just wrote books. That doesn't happen anymore. You can't be an author and just write books. You have to be social media, and you have to talk to people, and you have to do that. Or you can be an author that just writes books, but they may never be read by a human ever. That's unfortunately how that kind of works. So do you feel like now, I see on your website, because we cyberstalk our guests, so that's
Yeah.
something we do,
That's
that
right.
there are 3 books up there. Where's the 4th book right now?
The 4th book, I've got it back from the editor, the proofreader, and I'm just doing that last minute, I can't quite press send moment to send it off to my publisher for typesetting. So it's sitting, I kept thinking I'd send it last night, but then I realized how many times you have the word was in a 300,000, Word document, and you kind of start to second guess yourself. So I'm just in the last stages of number 4, which is called Cayenne. And I'm sort of 50,000 words-ish through number 5. So I do kind of back them up a little bit because I like pulling out pieces of one into the next one.
That's very cool. Well, hopefully when this podcast airs, book 4 will be out. That would be brilliant. That's super exciting. Did you pick the covers? Because the covers are really neat. I like the covers.
I didn't design them, but the photographs within the covers, within the domes, I took. So the first one I took back when I took my parents back to Scotland a couple of years ago, the Stones of Kalinich up in the island of Lewis, where this series is partially set, because obviously I'm partly Scottish. The second one, and there's the third one, I'm trying to think, that was Lewis as well, actually. So the 4th one, I just kind of went, look, it just needs to look pretty.
You're like, be sentimental, screw it, just have it look
just give me a color, and I want a different color. And the blurb, goodness sake, and honestly, the acknowledgements are the parts where I just sit there and go, holy shit. You'd think after writing several 400,000 word novels, you'd think that I would know how to write an acknowledgements page, but I get there and go blank every time.
How long does it take you to write one of these?
Yeah, that's a lot of words. I didn't realize it was that big. Wow.
I think I just said 400,000. I think there are 100 odd thousand each.
Okay, because I was like,
yeah, that's all right.
Talk about a dissertation on world peace, 400,000 words.
Too early, yeah. So how long does it take? A couple of months, really. I mean, I work full time in a paid job and have kids. So it's evenings, and then it's that, it's that classic meme in my house. I'm trying to write. And they know, mom. So it's it's slow and steady, but I'll try to get a couple.
Did you just say 2 months?
No, a couple of months. I think I probably started Cayenne the end of last year, but as I said, I try and overlap them, have 2 on the go at a time, just so that there's obviously lead on to the next one. Otherwise, you've got to go back and go, crap, what did I name that character again? Which I'm bringing back in. So I do try and run 2 together.
Okay, you just still said a couple months. I'm just like sitting here going, yeah, I'm jealous. Okay, cool. Come on.
So are you a late night writer, or are you a morning writer?
I'm a late night writer because I tend to get up and I'm a morning person, is the crazy thing, but I found that night, once I've said everybody go to bed, I can actually focus on what I'm doing.
I'm the same.
Okay, you're not a morning person.
I'm not a morning person, but I work at night. When everybody goes to bed, that's when I get my work done.
No, that's fine. She will not get up in the morning unless she has to.
No, I don't get up in the morning. I stay up until 4 a.m. every night. That's my work time.
Unfortunately, I start getting phone calls from work at 8. So it's that case of, you have to answer all your emails and get on top of your work. And then evening is my time.
Oh, but yeah, my teaching schedule is kind. I can grade whenever, because I'm online because of COVID. So I do my thing whenever.
So I haven't taught in years, but we did that last year, homeschooling kids, and oh my goodness, if there wasn't an non-alcoholic parent in Australia, I tell you what, we all struggled.
Okay, we have to take a quick break, but we're going to touch on that when we get back, because it definitely has impacted writing. So we will be right back with Drinking with Authors.
Sample locally sourced, quality distilled spirits in the beautiful Columbia River Gorge. At Skunk Brothers Distillery, we're family-owned, brewing small batch grain to bottle spirits, just like our grandfather did back in the Prohibition era. From handcrafted bourbons and moonshine to flavored blends and cordials infused with local fruit. Join us for a tasting tour and buy Skunk Brothers Spirits straight from the source.
It's all in the family at Skunk Brothers Spirits, located in Stevenson, Washington.
And we're back. We're back. We're back. Okay. We at the break we were talking a little bit about COVID. Now, working with the people, my team in Australia, you guys took a very different approach. They're in Melbourne. Melbourne. Burn. Okay.
Melbourne.
Melbourne. Okay. It's like toast, Melbourne toast. Okay. No, that's different. Anyway, moving on. It's okay. You
don't
should
even know what
drink
that
when I'm
is.
talking, Jen. You know you shouldn't drink.
I should have known better. It's Melba toast.
Melba toast. I knew I couldn't remember it. Okay, it's fine. It's okay. I'm just offending entire other countries. No, when I talked to them in that thing, you guys have been in lockdown. Like
Massive.
we're in Florida and we don't have COVID in Florida per our government right now. So that's a whole thing. But you guys went into severe lockdown, right? Are you guys still in lockdown? Like people can't come into Australia, right?
Life's gone back to normal for us, and I'm in Victoria. So I have a home in Melbourne and my husband lives in Melbourne. So I go up and down all the time. We clamped down really hard and really quickly. Australia, it was months in the end. I think, unfortunately where I live at the moment, we had massive bushfires at the beginning of last year. So we were evacuated for bushfires. Then there was the smoke issue for months. And then April came and the world imploded. And Australia locked down really hard, locked down all our borders, locked down our state borders, which caused us some grief. And kids homeschooled, only essential shopping, only one person, mask wearing, and we deal out fines. We're really good at doling out fines and being pulled over. And my hubby's a paramedic, and so he'd be coming home from work at 2 a.m. and he'd get pulled over by the police. He's in uniform, no problem, off you go. But they did. We really clamped down, and we're in a state case now where it's been weeks since we've had a locally acquired case. There's still the odd one that comes into hotel quarantine. We put people in quarantine for 2 or 3 weeks at their own expense. Australia's clamped down really hard. So even though the vaccination rollout has started, and it's, priority level 1, 2, 3, and I'm number 375. So I haven't had one yet, but, health workers and things have had them, but we're just back to normal now. You can go to the supermarket, you can have parties, you can have people over to your house. But this time last year, it was hard going.
No, and it seemed like it at the same time, though, I would say that you guys did it better than we did it here, because the reaction, like we're in Florida, which is very different than other parts of the country. And it was interesting because we didn't really go into a lockdown. Like it's still not completely locked down. We have thousands of new cases a day. Thousands, literally, like 6,000 or 7,000 in just the state of Florida.
We didn't have that many in total.
Well, that's what I'm saying. That's why I said you guys did it. As hard as it was on you guys, you didn't have the amount of deaths and stuff like that, like a lot of other countries who kind of locked down, but then went to lockdown, then looked back and went, well, what the heck?
I think Christmas. Yeah, well, that happened to my
It's the Super Bowl. Okay, spring break.
Because you couldn't possibly pass it around at the Super Bowl. No, look, we went hard. We went fast. It was, and look, I was very supportive of it. I've got an elderly mum with cancer, and I just said, if she makes another Christmas, I don't care if it takes me 3 months to leave my house again. Everybody delivers. My coffee beans got delivered. My bread got delivered. Everything got delivered. Toilet paper was the thing we never saw coming, hoarding toilet paper. And I did go back and edit my book to add hoarding of toilet paper into one of them, because I thought I have to put that in there, because that was the thing we all just went, what the?
Well, and you know what, I wonder on that one, I literally went, talk about a faked situation. Create a panic about something being things, so people panic and clear out stores that normally wouldn't clear out stores. But you talk to the people that were supplying it, and there's plenty. Where did it all go?
Mm-hmm.
Like we had a guy here in Florida that went and bought $10,000 worth of toilet paper when the thing first started. Yeah, he did. He cleared out an entire store, bought it. Best part though was he went to try to return it. After, it started calming down, he started trying to return some of it. And the store manager said, no, you can screw off. What you did was not okay. Like, because he was part of what created this illusion that there was none when there was. It's just everybody started taking it home.
Australia put restrictions in place really quickly. It was like, you can have 2 packets of toilet paper and 2 packets of pasta and those sorts of things. And the thing I really liked was they did an early morning window. It was something crazy like 7 a.m. where people, old age pensioners and people with a disability could actually go shopping before everybody else. And I thought, isn't that awesome? Because what I don't want is my mum having to battle with somebody who's elbowing her out of the way to get to a packet of toilet paper. So I thought that was fantastic.
How did it affect your... Oh, go ahead, Jen. Sorry.
I was going to say we had a similar thing here where, especially in Florida, because we have a lot of old people here. So that a lot of the stores had like special hours that people could go to that just now stopped. Like maybe a couple of weeks ago, they stopped being open early. So
yeah, well, they also rolled out where the vaccines have rolled out here. Everybody can get vaccinated that's 16 and up, because they're still testing the vaccine on children. So Jen's fully vaccinated. She got through that. I broke my leg, so I'm gonna do that first. Then I'll do the vaccine, because I think the vaccine and the broken leg at the same time maybe a little bit much for my body to handle. my body might go into overload, especially now because I have metal parts, and I heard that's super exciting for the vaccine too. Can't wait.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Oh, yeah.
There's the whole pitchfork brigade going on, of course, about the AstraZeneca one versus the Pfizer one and blah, blah, blah. I'm just like, you know what? There's side effects and then there's dying. So I know which one I'm choosing.
Yeah, no, exactly. Jen, she's so super passionate. But how did it affect your writing? I mean, obviously with having your kids and, after several hours of trying to school them, wanting to, put them in a box somewhere and stuff.
Well, and I would spend the first 4 hours of my day on Zoom for work every day for my paid work. So my eldest, who's high school, did his from home badly, but that's okay. My little one is primary school, and I just gave up in the end. So when his teacher rang me and said, we haven't seen your son on whatever they use, playground, whatever, for a few days. And I'd go in there at 11 o'clock and he'd be nude in bed watching Netflix. And I'm like, dude, this is not happening. So finally he went back to school. So they did allow essential workers' children to go to school. And so he went for half days. And I thought, if he's doing his essential learning and, from 9 till 12, I'm good with this. And at least I know I don't have to worry about him eating the way through my fridge between 9 and 12. So one went to school, one didn't. Look, I think every school did it differently, and they use Google Classrooms. High schools are different because, of course, high school teachers teach subjects where primary teachers teach students. So he went to school and he had a teacher for the primary school. The high school, it was, at 9 o'clock you have to log in and you've got science, and they would give them the assignments and all of those sorts of things. So I think
what about for your writing? How did it affect
my
writing?
Look, it didn't actually, because I was home and I wasn't traveling as much for work. So I was able to condense my work and then wrap up my day at 5 o'clock, feed the ravenous hordes, and then sit down and actually write. So, and I think it gave me a lot of fodder of this sort of, you do assess society and go, what were you thinking? And all of those sorts of things. And I find that I do like that commentary on society. I'm that person that would sit back at a cafe and watch people. And you have these conversations with people, and you find that it does sort of flow its way into your writing. So.
Well, you write literally the perfect genre to do this entire situation we've had with COVID. Because when you're talking about, I've talked to so many authors that even for me, this COVID and the working from home and all of this stuff, I do HR, like I'm an HR executive for a day job. This year has been exhausting. It's just been exhausting because outside of just having humans to deal with, which they're fascinating creatures to begin with, having the COVID on top of it and the uncertainty, and you're almost wearing the weight of all your employees and trying to keep them safe and trying to make the right decisions, especially on this side where you don't necessarily have the governing bodies that should be making some better decisions, So you're making decisions outside of that, like, we're all going to go home and work, even though it was never like sort of really declared like go home and work. There's a lot of companies that didn't shut down that
did it so well. And that was what I think things have really changed for us. And I guess I'm lucky in that I am the boss at work, and I report to the board. And one of the first things I did was said to our board, this is how much money we've got. We need to take this business to the wall because we need to protect our employees. And fortunately, they agreed, and we didn't get there because obviously we continued to operate. Anyone who could work from home did, and it's changed how we do business. So now I don't have to drive an hour and a half to the regional office to have a meeting with somebody. I just say, let's just jump on Teams and let's talk. People, it's recognized that people can work from home. I think people used to think that, I don't know, you were lying on your lounge chair drinking coffee, where now we realize actually you work a hell of a lot harder from home because you don't have the social interactions with people. You just want to get your job done.
Yeah, no, and I think it forced managers to have to confront, how do you work from home? I think that was the big thing that I saw. Like, we talk a lot about it because I had a person come up to me the other day. Well, it was on Zoom, but he was like, I'm trying to decide, because we're making people decide whether or not positions can be fully remote as we're hiring new people. Can we hire them anywhere in the country? Like, is it okay? But I'm a firm believer, if you do it for one, you do it for all in that particular job. You can't go, you four are okay, but you three are not. And he's like, yeah, I'm just not sure if this working from home is workable. Blah. I'm like, it's been a year, dude, an entire year. Are they non-productive? Did you have a bad year? Blah, blah. And he's like, no. And I'm like, I'm not having this conversation with you. This is dumb. So when it comes to, so you would say you have 5 books coming out in this series, and you're thinking all the time. I can tell you're a thinker, and I appreciate that about you. So what comes next?
Look, I realized that sustainability is something I'm really passionate about. And, you know, I got my own little beehive last year and they're buzzing away outside my window. So these things that I'm trying to write about is that could we go back to basics with all the technology we've got of today? So could we get rid of all the, you know, the crap like iPhones and, you know, designer clothes and $2,000 handbags? Could we do away with that? And could we bring it back to core values? And so that's the life I try to live, but I suspect that that's really still my niche. And it is finding the genre I find the hardest. So the first one I did write with a sort of a new adult focus on it. And then I realized, but that's not real life, because there's always going to be sex scenes in there and that's going to happen. And that was the hardest part for me to write. But then I realized that that's probably not appropriate for that age group. So I removed the young adult, new adult tag for books 2 and 3. They got a little bit raunchier as they went along.
Oh, wow. Well, total breakdown. I love that you didn't answer the question though. So listen, I may be a little tipsy, but I've done this before. So what do you think is next? Just another series, maybe with a different part of the world, or
another series based on sustainability, likely. I do like this dystopian, sort of genre, but I haven't really decided yet because my head's still spinning with all these characters and they keep talking to me. So I haven't really got there yet.
It'll be interesting to see.
So
go for it.
Do you plan them all out, or do you just sit down and write? What's the process?
I say to people all the time, I am so super organized in my day job. I know where things are going and I write strategic plans and I write contracts and I'm really, really organized. I'm a pantser when it comes to writing. And I find that I do have an idea of where my books are going, but then people keep saying things and I'm like, why are you doing this? And it just keeps flowing. So it is very much a creative outlet for me. And I do find that people say things and I end up bringing in characters from 2 books ago and things like that. I really want to be a plotter, but I'm not.
I get completely messed up if I plot too much. I actually did that on a recent book I started writing, and I had to throw away what I wrote down because I got wound up in what I was doing and it wasn't flowing. And I'm like, this is dumb. I need to go a different route. I have to. I'm a pantser. I'm like the epic pantser, like not even necessarily outlines or bullet points. Like I'm like, let's just write a story.
I just write scenes, and to be honest, I don't even write them linear. I write the scenes and then it flows into some semblance of order. And I do find that occasionally I'll just take out a whole chapter because I think that doesn't move the story along. So let's take that out. but it's, yeah, I'm not linear and it's not sequential. It just comes, and it seems to work for me.
That's good. What about dialogue? How do you feel you do with dialogue?
I talk to myself a lot. I I feel that if you can read it aloud and it makes sense, and then of course you want to take out all of your that's and ohs and all the things that people, say in real life but probably shouldn't be saying in text. So I actually really enjoy dialogue because I think that it's really good for the exposition stuff. How things come about in a reasonably quick way. You can actually talk about it. So I like dialogue.
I love dialogue. What do you think your problem areas are, though, as a writer? All of us have problem areas that, hopefully we
Absolutely.
change and get better and have new problem areas. But what do you feel like your biggest, like, Achilles heel is when it comes to writing, other than was, apparently? Apparently you need to go find a replace was from what you were saying earlier.
That, yeah. And of course it's a tense thing, I think, because I think in a current tense, and I write in past tense, and tense is always something that I'm constantly checking. But goodness, writing sex scenes was really hard. So I had to go and read a whole heap of romance, and I was going, really? I'm not sure I can do that. But I realized that to have an all-encompassing book about relationships and people, you had to. It was really important, but it was how was the interesting part for me. That was a steep learning curve.
Well, I think sex scenes are for a lot of people. I don't think people realize how hard. I write erotica as one of the two genres I write. And it's interesting when you first start doing it. And I know people who use dolls or little, things to almost not act out, because that sounds terrible, but to track or draw maps if there's multiple people involved, because very much like fight scenes, you can end up with like 3 arms and there's only 2 arms on that human or whatever, and it's not realistic. Also, it's very easy to get stuck in using the same words over and over again. If you don't get, there's a lot of I have a favorite little book I got that, let me see if I can find it. But it's about sex words, and it's words that you can use so that you're not using the word cock 500 times, even though I love the word cock. Naughty words for nice writers and sexy words for writers.
She gave me this one. That's what I thought you were looking for.
Any words for nice writers?
Yes, well, because you're a nice
That's
writer.
what I need.
Yeah, no, I got that book only because at a certain point, like going back and rereading my stuff, I'm like, how many times did I say the word cock? Okay, find and replace the word cock. And when you're doing that, that's a whole new level. When that's not a was or a that, it's how many times did you say moist? You shouldn't say moist ever, by the way.
The most hated word. Yeah.
Yes. Oh my goodness. Well, that's interesting. Does your husband read your work?
No.
That's okay. That's okay. We all have similar. My boyfriend doesn't read all my work stuff. I've read stuff to him, and I've asked him to read stuff to go, does this make sense to you? But trust me, he's not picking up My Home on Whore Island and thinking this is great literature. I should be reading this. I think Jen has a similar thing. I don't think her husband reads a lot.
He's supportive in other ways. He brings me tea and gets our daughter up in the morning so I can sleep in.
Oh, that's lovely.
Well, because she's up till 4:00 in the morning. So let's talk a little bit about your fans. So how much interaction have you had with fans face to face? Have you had a lot, because these kind of came out soon?
No, not face to face, because of course COVID, hard lockdown in Australia. And the fact that I took a job 5 hours away from Melbourne and ditched hubby in Melbourne. So I've got a fairly unusual life in that I moved away and said, I'm taking a job and I'm taking the kids, the cats and the dogs, and moved. And so I spend my life driving up and down to Melbourne, but no, you don't get the opportunity at the moment. It's really only been the last sort of month or so that lockdown has lifted, and everyone's still sort of a bit apprehensive in Australia about collective group things. So there's not been any conferences or anything to actually go to.
I can't wait for you to have that experience. That is an amazing experience when you get to have that experience and be around your
scared
family.
About that.
Why are you scared about that? You're a celebrity. This is the fun part. I think authors being some of the most humble people, not me, but a lot of authors are humble people. I know I'm not humble anyway. But being able to interact with your fans, because they come up to you and they're, even if they don't know you and they see your book and they pick it up, you did this thing and you're a celebrity to them for doing that thing. And especially if they know you and they come meet you, because you'll find that, and I don't know if you've already experienced this through some of like email and stuff like that, but they fall in love with characters or they fall in love with ideas, and they'll remember your book better than you do.
Yeah, I'm a bit worried about that.
No, you just go, what's your favorite scene? Oh my gosh, yes, I love that one. Just because they're going to tell you, they're not going to make it up. They're not going to be like, I'm going to test her and say this thing that's not in the book. No, they'll repeat to you their favorite line in the book, the favorite character in the book, all of that stuff. And maybe even dress up like a character in your book.
It was lovely. So it was only yesterday I got an email from somebody who said, you write really well around anxiety and sensory processing issues. And I said, I've got 2 kids with autism, anxiety, and she said, I could tell because I've got 2 kids with this. And she said, I could see that you were writing that from experience. And I thought, isn't that lovely? Because one of my earliest reviews was the character's backstory doesn't match the diagnosis. And I'm thinking, hello, buddy, living it. So it was really a really interesting comment on a review. And then to have somebody just email me out of the blue and say, this really resonated because that's my life. I thought that was so lovely.
Well, you talk about reading reviews, so that can be a very double-edged sword.
Yeah.
A very, very double-edged sword.
But I think I see it as feedback, and because I want to improve. And so it's hard. And when you get a good one, it kind of goes, oh, and you get all buzzy for the rest of the day because that's lovely. And then you read something, and I think the hardest ones are where people go, I didn't like it. And you think, but why? So what didn't you like? Because if it's something that's fundamental to the book, well, I'm not changing it. But if it was something that you went, I didn't like the way you did that, and I could go, actually, no, fair call. I can see that. So I do read them.
You need to give out ARC copies if that's the feedback you want. You got to be careful, because the problem with reviews is people pick up a book because of a cover or a blurb, and they get into it and then realize it's not their book. So you want the people who have read your book to be people who are fans of that particular genre or whatever. And that is not always the case. Like I had a review, I had a review. So it's an erotica book. It's called My Home on Whore Island, right? And it's humorous erotica. That's the whole point. Looking for Mr. Right Now, not Mr. Right. And I had a male on Amazon review it that was upset that it didn't give more direction on how to have casual encounters.
It wasn't a how-to guide.
No, but that's what he gave me 3 stars and said that it didn't give enough direction on how to establish these kind of relationships.
You should be in the self-help section, apparently.
Yeah, apparently. Yeah. Apparently not, actually. Apparently it's not good enough to be in the self-help section to help you find somebody to fuck. I just was like, what? And it just is a true, exact thing to go, this book wasn't for that person. I agree with you. If you can get art copies out, and we can always talk separately on that, to get the people who are invested in reading to write a true review about what they thought of it, or a group of beta readers that are not friends. Do not have friends be beta readers unless they're authors and really understand that. But it's very dangerous having friends as beta readers, because they go, oh, it's great. It's great. It's the best book I ever read. It's so fantastic. But finding that, I think, is important so you can improve, and maybe having writer friends that you constantly are learning and growing from. But be careful with reviews. That's just my advice, because you never know who's the one typing. Or if you see a review, especially on Amazon, you can click on that user to see what else they've reviewed, to see if they actually know what the fuck they're talking about, or if they're looking for a guide to show them how to have one-night stands. Because
I think that's just so hard as a new author. As I say, it's navigating that space and recognizing that reviews are critical to sales. And how do you get those reviews when you're not known? And how do you build that ARC team and your street team? And how do you build those things? And that's just been, it's slow going, but I wanted it to be organic. So getting there, but I'm not really there yet.
Well, outside of this, I'll ping you. I'll give you some hints and tips and stuff like that to help you with that. Because part of my goal is to also help authors, because it is hard to navigate that. But you do want to find people who genuinely want to read your book, to genuinely give you a real review. Is different than somebody who's buying the book to give you a review, or on Kindle, and are they watching it, reading it late at night? Because like on Kindle, you can't type in a review. Like you're not typing in a review on Kindle. You're hitting the stars and then it takes you to the next book you're reading. So like you have to go in and type in a review for the book. I mean, you may be able to do it somewhere in Kindle, but it's not at the, when you're late at night reading with your Kindle White and then you hit the end of the book. You can rate it by stars, but you can't necessarily write a full review. So it's a very interesting game and gambit to go down that path. But it is, it's nice when somebody says something super nice about your book or it impacted you. But I think if you do on social media and do you have a fan group for your books on social media on like Facebook?
Still working on that, so still trying to build it. I mean, I only released Antipodes in December of last year, so it's only been 5 months, and so it's a slow game. But I've released 3 in 5 months with another one to come. So it's where do you spend your time and your energy? Do you spend it on the writing and on engaging on social media? I wasn't even on Instagram until about January, and now and then you suddenly have 2,000 followers, and you think, how did that happen? So it's
no, that's brilliant.
That's great.
World.
It's a whole new world.
It is, and you do have to partition your time, especially if you're not with a publisher who's doing that marketing for you and stuff like that. But I think you're doing fantastic, and I think you should be super proud of what you've accomplished. And I just now I realized, and this may have been the Honey Jack talking again, but I didn't realize it. I thought it was the previous year. You've done fantastic for releasing all those books in a very short period of time. You are kicking some ass and taking some names. So you should be super proud of what you've accomplished there. You've done a good job.
Awesome.
And
Still horrible imposter syndrome. I'm not there yet.
Okay, well, you'll eventually get over it and become like me and just think you're the greatest thing in the world.
Hey,
So.
I just went to a thing at work on imposter syndrome, and it had like 67 people in it, and everybody in the chat was like, oh my God, that's me. Yep, that's me. Guilty. Yep, that's us. So we all feel the same way, except not Erica.
It's funny.
I wish I felt that way. I wish I had the confidence to go, hey, this is me. But it's like every time I start a new job, it's the same. I keep waiting in that probation period for someone to go, actually, we've just worked out, you've got no clue what you're doing. So I feel that every time. And I just think it is part of who I am.
Well, so, I think it is. When I first started writing, and don't have the amount of workout that Jen does and a lot of colleagues and friends and stuff like that. But I walked into a open mic one night, and I had like one short story published or something, like nobody, it wasn't even a big deal. And I walked in and I stood there and I went, you know what? I'm a famous author. That's just my decision. I'm a famous author. I'm kind of a big deal. I'm just going to, and I didn't walk around going, I'm a famous author, but I just in my mind went, I'm a famous author. I'm a big deal. And what was interesting is I think confidence, if you just decide that, because you're the one deciding that, you're the one producing the books, you're the one doing that, I'm a famous author. And what I found was when I would go to these events, I'd walk in and they'd go, oh, hi. And they go shake my hand. I'm like, oh yeah, no, I'm Erica Lance. And they're like, you're Erica Lance? It's literally, I have not like got a USA bestseller or something. So it's not like you're Erica Lance, but it was just owning the room. And I think as authors, we all need to own the room and not be egotistical about it, but decide you have 3 books out. You are a celebrity. You are. Look, you're on a podcast.
I'm struggling with that word.
But
I am struggling with that word. And the crazy thing is at work, I'm a lot better at projecting the confidence I don't feel. I just haven't got there with writing yet.
Well, now you're on Drinking with Authors, who literally has thousands of subscribers. So now you're a big deal, and now you're a celebrity on the podcast. So everybody needs to email TS here and tell her what a big deal she is, so she gets it, and then she'll walk around thinking she's a big deal. And then eventually I'll be like, hey, do you want to be on the show? And she's like, No, I'm sorry. I'm only on Seth Rogen. Like,
Don't even have Seth Rogen in Australia.
oh my goodness. Oh, that's not good. Okay. We're nearing the end. I didn't realize we were close to the end. Okay. So what advice would you give writers out there? What little grain of wisdom would you pass?
Oh, look, I think there's two quotes that resonate with me, and one really is start now. It's like parenting. There's no such thing as a good time. You make the time and you write, and you've got to finish it. So anyone can write, only authors finish it. And the other one is that lovely Jodi Picoult quote around you can always edit a bad page, but you can't edit a blank one. So it's all very much around the same theme for me. It's about, I wish I'd started this sooner and, and actually finished.
Well, you're catching up. So well done with that. So how do people find you if they want to find your books? What is the best way to do that?
So I have a website, so tssimons, simons.com, Amazon, BookBub, Goodreads, all the usual platforms.
And you're on Instagram at?
Insta, TS Simons, and Facebook as well.
Good. So
I struggle with Twitter. I don't get Twitter.
Twitter is really, there's a whole, I'm going to send you an email. There's a whole trick to Twitter. Unless you want to just fight with people, then there's a totally different thing you can do on Twitter. There's like two versions of Twitter. There's the fight with people and actually maybe share some wisdom side of that.
That's what I'm looking for.
Yes. Okay. We'll give you a couple tricks. You have been amazing. Thank you for being on the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Well, you're a big deal in Australia. So of course we had you on here. So anyway, it has been Drinking with Authors. I've been your host, Erica Lance.
J.M. Paquette.
And we will see you next time.